everyone, welcome to Dr. Spotfire. Learning is not driven by answers, but by questions. And that is why our goal is to pick up your questions from community or from Twitter or email or in-person events and provide you step-by-step answers for you to create the solutions that we build. Our team consists of me, Divya Jyoti Rajdev. I'm a senior data scientist at TIPCO. We have Ninad, who works strategy with us. We have Vinod, Robert, and Anna, who do various parts of post-processing campaigning. And then we have the featured experts for today. So we have a very special session today, which is based around effective visualization and tips and tricks of visualization. The first part is going to be given by Stu Blair. He's a senior analytics solution consultant. And then we'll jump into the more hands-on Q&A part that's going to be given by Minerva Datta, solutions consultant. So we're based out of Palo Alto, but as you can see, we have participants from many, many countries. This is Claude directly using the data that we get from you, only that's country specific. And for starting today's session, I'm going to hand over to Stu, who's going to talk about the rise of the data decorator. Go ahead and take over, Stu.
Sure, thanks very much. If you can just hand over the screen sharing. There we go. So good morning, good evening, everybody. My name is Stu Blair. I'm part of our solutions consulting team, and I'll be taking you through what we're starting to see in the marketplace is, or as we're terming, the rise of the data artist. So along with Spotfire's main differentiators about being able to provide not only the visual analytics side of the BI industry, but also to go beyond into the advanced predictive side. We're also seeing an increasing need and desire to have visually compelling analytics. So as you're telling a story with the data, it's done in such a manner that it's compelling for users to consume. So I'm just going to see if I can hide. This panel. So the agenda that I'm going to take you through in the next 15 or 20 minutes is firstly to give you a bit of a background to the example and the use case, then take you through some of the simple configuration changes or additions that need to be enabled to Spotfire in order for you to have an easier workflow and to really get that granular desired look and feel with your reports. I'm going to take you through some of the free online utilities that I use when I'm designing my themes in my DXPs and my reports. I'm going to take you through some of the features within Spotfire, which again can help you get that exact look and feel in your report. So starting with some of the more basic capabilities, which some of you may already be familiar with. So topics such as filter organization, and then also using tile map services to provide custom map backgrounds to any map visualizations you might be using. And then to go through some of the topics around font and icon selection in your visualizations, or how you can tidy up the axes in different charts. Also take you through how you can use out-the-box visualizations and maybe use them in a slightly different way to what you might be used to using. So in this example, we take a map chart and reconfigure it to show data as a donut chart. And then finally, take you through an example of how you can embed animations in Spotfire using a combination of CSS as the custom style sheets and JavaScript. So the original file that I've taken came from our energy forum. So some of you might be familiar with Spotfire from the energy space. So every year we hold an energy forum in the States, and this year went on a bit of a road trip around Europe. And so that gave us an opportunity to rebrand the visualizations and also the marketing material. So this was the original file, and the branding that we used is sort of a black and orange theme. I mean, it moved over to the European countries. It had more of a sort of a greens and beige and black color theme. So with that, we looked to revamp this dashboard that you've seen previously. And so this was the theme that we went with for that. So more sort of a black and greens with some of the animated features. So the steps I'll be taking you through now will be essentially how I went from creating this dashboard, or taking this dashboard, and revisualizing it using this theme and this branding. So what I've done is I've taken that original report and I've effectively removed all the styling out of it. So it's now, I guess, a more standard white Spotfire report. So just to recap, we'll be taking this report and bringing it in line with the European Energy and IoT Forum theme. So as I mentioned, before we get going, there are some configuration changes to be enabled in Spotfire. So I'm going to dive into my Spotfire Analyst clients. And the first thing I'm going to enable is a feature under the Administration Manager. And if you come over to your preferences, so this can be set for one or all of your groups. So I'll just select the everybody group, but it could be, you may only want to enable this for...
Stu?
Yeah.
I think we can't see your screen at some point. You should.
Sorry, there you go. Is that coming through better?
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay, sorry. Just to recap for you guys. So here's that original dashboard with all the theming and the coloring removed from it. So we're going to be taking you through how we go from this look and feel through to the final branded dashboard that we had for the Energy and IoT Forum in Europe. So the configuration changes I was talking about, so under the Tools and the Administration Manager menu, under the Preferences, if we scroll down to the text area, there's an option here to perform HTML sanitization. Now, as you can see, this can be set either globally for all users, or it can be set for a specific group of users. So you may want to set this, for example, for an exec group where they wouldn't have any ability to create or amend dashboards, but they might have a higher standard with regards to the sorts of look and feel that they'd want to consume their reports with. So when you first come in here, this will be blank by nature. It is actually under the hood enabled by default. So if you set that to false, and then click OK, and then click Close. If you have any questions with regards to what that's actually doing, there is a page on the community wiki, and we'll link that in the session notes. And it just talks you through some of the considerations and why you may or may not want to enable this in your organization. Yeah, as I said, we'll link that in the session notes. So having enabled that feature, the other feature we want to enable is under the Tools and Options menu. And as of Spotfire 7.5, Spotfire has been using a Chromium-enabled framework engine, and that comes with the well-known Chrome browser-style developer tools. So to enable the developer mode or the developer tool, if you click this button to the Show Development menu and click OK, that will enable that tool. And if I come over to, I've got Google Chrome open here, I'll just show you that it's the same tool set you get in the native Google Chrome tool. If you turn on the Google Chrome tool sets, and the feature I'm really interested in here is the ability to select elements in a page and to inspect them. So as I'm highlighting elements in this page, you can see they're being highlighted. I can see which HTML div, or which div class they belong to, and then more importantly, I can see the style elements, so the CSS style elements that are related to that selected item. And so this is these two tool sets. So having the option of turning off the HTML sanitization, which will allow us to override the default styling of elements in Spotfire, along with this tool, so we can actually highlight and identify the specific elements we want to amend, are the two features we want to turn on. Once they're enabled, you will need to close all your instances of Spotfire Analyst and then reopen them, and then they'll be enabled. Just for so you can see what happens once it's enabled in Spotfire. So access to that same menu. So under Tools, you'll see a new sub-menu called Development and Developer Tools. And again, you'll see this menu. And as you highlight this, click the highlight button, and you move the mouse around the screen, you'll be able to see the elements. And you can see I've made a selection on the background slider here. Just for transparency, today I am running Spotfire 7.13, which was released or GA'd last week. There are some features which are specific to this version, which I'll be using to aid me in my journey as a data artist, and I'll be calling those out as I go through, so you know which version the various features came into the tool set. So the first step I go through at a personal level, and I'm looking to re-envision a dashboard, is to define the themes. As I said, that's been in part already done for me in this instance. And the guys at Tibco came up with the branding for this event, so I want to make sure that my dashboard is in line with this event. And you can see that the colours here are primarily sort of beiges and greens. So in the new features of Spotfire 7.13, you have the ability to identify the hex codes for certain colors, or you now have the new color picker. So clicking on the elements in this dashboard, we can now get the values, the color values associated with certain elements. So actually applying that to something useful, and being able to identify colors which either complement each other or contrast each other. A really great website that's freely available is Adobe Color Wheel. So within this, you can you can add in your color as your starting point. And then, depending on the sorts of color range you want to uncover, there's various options down here where you can. You can choose. You can find the complementary colors, the compound colors. You can find shades of that selected color. And so you know that any colours that you choose in here will, when combined together in a relatively tight space within DXB, will either complement each other or will look nice. The alternative is you don't have a starting point and you want to find a library of colours which will work when combined. There is also the option in here to find palettes which have already been created by people with a good eye for colours, if nothing else. The other tool I like to use is this Flat UI color picker. Again, it's a free website, and within here you can find, based on a particular starting point for a color palette, it will give you a range of flat, modern looking colors. And so here you get the red, green, blue colors values, and also the hex codes there again, which you can drop into Spotfire. So going with a starting point, the first thing I did to to get to my end result was to use the custom themes tool within Spotfire. So it's an out-the-box feature, first introduced in version 7.01, I believe. So I'm going to base this theme on a dark colours, and I'm going to base it on that darker background colour of my original dashboard. So the starting point for my dashboard in this instance is this darker sort of grey, soft black colour. I'm going to set my primary colours to white, so that's going to change the highlights on the tab and also things like the zoom sliders. And I'm going to set a slightly more unusual / modern font, Microsoft Tiley, and I'm going to set the font color to white just to make it pop against that black background. In the details, you can see that it's already applied that. I want to create the perception of a seamless canvas within Spotfire, so I'm going to minimize the distance between visualizations to 0. And I'm also going to remove all the borders. So with that, that will get rid of the border for my selected visualizations. The other thing I might want to do for visualizations such as bar charts, combination charts, scatter plots, etc., is perhaps give those a slightly more contemporary feel. And again, an option there is to remove the lines that surround the visualization, and then also remove the tickers as well. As you can see in version 7.13, we've actually also updated the axes pickers as well now. So rather than having that sort of white / grey background, they've now been modernized. And then finally on my column selectors, I'm going to update the font as well. You see very quickly, we've already got a nice look and feel to our dashboards. And I'm just going to save this into the library. So moving on to the filter organization. So one thing within Spotfire, as I'm sure many of you will be aware, that anything that I do in the analyst or in any state that I leave my dashboard in when I save it up to the library will get propagated up to the web player. So you can see in my filters at the moment, I have a range of filters available on my tables as well. So if a user in the web browser or web player clicks on the filters button, they'll be presented with that list, which you could argue may be a little overwhelming for some users. And ultimately, all I want them to be able to use are the control sets and these text areas I've pre-configured. So if we go into the dashboard here in the web player, I'm just going to exit that. I'm going to pull in the latest version. And just to reiterate what I'm talking about, so the filters here, what I'm ticking on here, ultimately I want to make those unavailable to users. So very simply within Spotfire, if I come back onto the analyst client, click on the filters, right click on the filter panel, and go to organize filters. And what I'm going to do here is just to hide all the filters. So now should a user come, accidentally click on that filters button, they won't see anything. And now I'm able to control what the users are able to interact with on the dashboard. Now, the other thing that I might want to do is to, with the date pickers, from a personal perspective, I quite like this pop out, but the zoom slider, I want to hide that just to be able to, if nothing else, to be able to compact down that filter, and also to give a cleaner aesthetic. So I'm going to use the developer tools to identify that component. So as I hover over this, you can see the different elements or different parts of that text area being highlighted. And as I click on this, you see I've got my range slider here. And the nice thing about the tool set is it gives you a way to add in an agile, ad hoc manner to trial out different CSS elements and to play with their values and see what sort of impact that would have without actually committing a permanent change to the dashboard. So any changes I make here only exist in the realms of this tool or this menu being available. If I was to save the dashboard, they wouldn't be committed to the library. So here I'm going to set the visibility, and I'm going to, at the moment, if I set that to visible, it will still be there. If I set that to hidden, you can see it's disappeared. So I know that's the right setting. So if I select this this block of text, I'm just going to close the menu down. I'm going to come into, right-click on my text area, click on Edit HTML, and then to override the CSS or the styling in Spotfire, I'm going to add in this style block. And now anything that I add into this block from that developer toolset will override the styling in Spotfire. So if I set this to visible, for example, you can see my zoom slider comes back. And if I then set that to hidden again, you can see it disappeared. Now, if I save this to the library, it will commit that that amendment to the report, and I've still got access to the date picker here. So the next thing I want to show you guys is how we can use different map backgrounds from different mapping providers. So that could be Google or one of the other free tile map services. One that I like to use is one called Mapbox. This is a freely available service. TIBCO doesn't have any affiliation with them. They just provide a very nice environment and studio interface where you can actually create your own maps from various pre-canned backgrounds. So you can either use, there's a range of different map backgrounds out the box, and there's also quite a strong community that create and publish backgrounds. So one that I like to use is this light background. So if I click on that and I go to share and develop, you can get a preview of what the end result will look like. So I particularly like this. It's quite flat color scheme, and also being light, it really helps promote making any data stand out that you might put on top of it. So to use this map background in Spotfire, if you scroll down under the Use Styles and GIS apps, if you set that to Carto and click on copy, and then coming back to Spotfire, we can then right click on our map, go to our layers, turn off that the out the box map background, and we're going to add a new TMS layer. We can set our URL, we can add any copyright text and also a link to the copyright or the usage agreement if we need to, and then click update, and we can see that's now pulled in the background map. And we can also do the same on this map, on our details map as well. So if we turn this off, go to our map layers, add a TMS layer, and click update. Now the other thing we might want to add onto this map, given that it is a details map, is that we may want to turn off some of the navigation tools. As ultimately this top map is going to be driving the zooming in the interface at all. So if we go to the appearance, we make sure that auto zoom is turned on. So as we select items in the top map, the bottom map will update, and we're going to turn off all the other features here. Just to give us our maximum space, and then finally we'll turn off the title bar as well. One other thing that we can make use of in Spotfire, both on visualizations such as map charts and also scatter plots, for example, is to make use of some of the slightly more modern icon sets. So here we have a map of wells by the different fluid types, and here we have this details map. So for every well we select, we can see its surface and subsurface point and the distance between the two. So I'm going to set the bottom icons to be a upside down hollow triangle, and then the surface ones to be an upwardly pointing one. Small change, but yeah, it just makes you know, all these things do kind of add up. The other thing that we may also want to do is with our combination chart here. So you can see we've got some quite large numbers with regards to the different fluid, the amount of production are associated with each fluid types, but the number of wells is you know, a relatively small number. So if we come into the properties and the y-axis, so on the scale, so we can set all the scales to the right, and then we'll come in and we'll individually select the number of wells and set that to the left. So we've now essentially grouped the numbers on the axes based on the sorts of values that we'd expect. And then on the formatting side, we'll come in, we'll select all our numbers, we'll set those in number, we use 1000 as separator, and we'll use a short number format, and we'll set the number of decimals to be automatic. So you see here, we've just been able to condense down the amount of space and also clean up the way in which numbers are represented. And then finally, because we've got our legends configured here, we can get rid of things like the axis selector and also the x-axis selector, and we can just tease out some of the values here, just so we're maximizing the visualization space. So going back to our final theme that we had before, so one of the very commonly asked for features or visualizations in Spotfire is a donut chart, and again we'll put these in the session notes. But on the TIBCO community, we actually had one of our community users submit their the way in which that they've been able to create donut charts using the Spotfire map chart. So I'll take you through this article now, and as I said, we'll put this in the session notes. So what I want to do is, rather than using this KPI chart, I'd like to re-envision this as a donut chart. So my donut chart will show me ultimately the total number of wells split over the well types. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new map chart, and using the maximize visualization feature, which was introduced in Spotfire 7.12, I'm going to maximize that visualization so I can hide the others and make working with this or reconfiguring this chart easier. I'm going to right click on the chart, I'm going to go to properties, and under the layers I'm going to turn off my map layer and drag this over. Now what I want to do with this marker layer is go into the settings, and I want to set this up as essentially as a pie chart initially. So under the positioning, I want any pie to be centered on the middle of the screen. So I'm going to set a coordinates set of 1, 1, so to center my data. I'm then going to come down to my colors, and I want my pie chart to be to show me the number of wells split by fluid. So under the size, I'm going to set this to the count of unique wells to give me the number of wells by fluid. I'm going to maximize my donut size, and I'm going to set this to pies, and I'm going to set that again to the unique count. And okay, set the number of wells by fluid, and And I'm going to turn off the tooltip. So as I hover around here, I won't get any tooltips, but I'm still able to see the number of wells per fluid. So having said that, the next thing I'm going to do is add a duplicate layer. And so what this duplicate layer will do is we'll ultimately be configuring this to give the impression of the donut hole, so to sort of give the impression of the middle section of this chart having been cut out. So if I go back into the properties and the layers. So this layer at the top is a duplication of the bottom layer. It's sitting on top of our original pie charts. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to set the size to be slightly smaller than the original pie chart. So you can see here now I've got effectively 2 pie charts in here. Under the colors, I'm going to remove the fluid, and I'm going to set this as a text string, and I'm going to just type in the words total wells. Oops. The reason for this will be obvious in a moment. And under under the shape, I'm going to set the sector value and the sector category. So now I've got the total wells and the number of total wells. So if I add up all these numbers, it comes to 465. So the final point or final part of this is now just to bring the colors in line with my theme. So I'm going to select on my total wells, this middle part. I'm going to use the new color picker. I'm going to click on the background, and I've effectively given the impression of that middle section being cut out. I can now minimize my visualization, drag that into the right area, remove my chart. And if I scroll down through the legend, I now want to bring my fluids in line with or the colors of my fluids in line with my color theme. So again, using the color picker, I can very quickly select the colors from my pre-branded event icon. And there you go, I've now got it brought, at least from color perspective, it's now in brand. And it's just a case of cleaning up the elements which are shown in here. So coming into the layers, oops, sorry. Turning off some of these features, selecting the legend, and the only thing I want to show is the color by. And within the color by, I want to access the submenu to turn off the title and to turn off the axes selectors. And there you have it. Now I have my my donut chart in Spotfire. The really nice thing with this is because it's an out-the-box feature, as I'm selecting items or filtering my data, this will update in line with those selections. So the final thing I wanted to take you through is adding in animations. So if I go to the finished product, so you can see here I've got this this animation running here. Again, you know, it's not necessarily something which will add a lot of analytical integrity to my dashboard, but it does give that sort of wow factor. And one of the great things about Spotfire is obviously when you put it into you publish things into the web browser, you're providing an interactive environment. So having features like this enable, you know, just bring the dashboard to life a bit. Obviously, trying to balance, making sure you balance that with without these things being too distracting. So to add that element in, the process I went through, so I went to our favorite web browser. I googled CodePen CSS Flame. So CodePen, for anyone that's unfamiliar with it, is again a free website where an active community can publish any animated CSS, JavaScript animations that they might want to share with the wider community. And the nice thing is it gives you a web-enabled platform which you can tweak the code, trial different amendments to it, and then it will see how they apply in real world before bringing them to Spotfire. But to bring this example into Spotfire, a very simple case of selecting the various elements and dropping them into the various areas that you need to in Spotfire. So I want to drop the flame icon over the O here. So I go into the HTML area. So I want to firstly drop in the HTML component from that example. Oops. I want to take the this styling block from CSS and drop that into my style block in Spotfire. And then the final thing that I need to do is to create a new JavaScript. So I'm going to just select this, go back to Spotfire, I'm going to create a new script and call it flame animation. And I'm just going to paste this code in. And I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to click save. And there you go. And I'm going to finally remove the O. And there you go, that's my example completed. One final point, if anybody would like to see some more examples of what can be done under the Spotfire community, there is a tips and tricks section. And under here, we have got some additional examples which we've published. And again, we'll link to this in the session notes, but you've got a recap on the configuration changes that should be made in the Administration Manager. We've got some examples of different dashboards within Spotfire using either CSS elements or JavaScript components within text areas. And you've also got access to the some DXPs in there as well, so you can bring those on board and start playing with them for yourself. And with that, I'll hand back to the team. Thank you.
Thanks, Stu. That was a absolutely smashing session, and I hope that all the users are going to be working with your techniques. I've posted the links on the chat, so make sure you're grabbing them from the chat. Now we're going to have Minerva Datta, who's going to continue the same theme and present tips and tricks related to various HTML, JavaScript, and IronPython scripts that visualization related, and we've had these questions come up in a lot of live events. Go ahead, Minerva.
Thanks, DJ. Hello, everyone. I am going to share my screen now. All right. So I had a curation of questions that are most commonly asked when I try and give workshops or talk to my customers. And let's go through them very quickly. Some of the steps Stu mentioned beautifully, so I'll not be going over it again. I'll probably share the link again. Many times customers ask me, why doesn't my HTML or CSS work? So most of the time the answer is that you probably have HTML sanitation enabled. And like Stu said, there are very good reasons to have that. And if you don't want it, it's a very simple process of following these steps, as was shown in the demo a little earlier. Further along, I wanted to play with a few public resources to tell you how you could add a few things to your DXPs to make them look more savvy, to make them look more interactive. So before we do that, let's go to the first part. As you know, HTML and CSS in the text areas are really add a distinctive element to your DXP, and often they can comply with your DXP's looking your corporate identity to make your DXP look and feel more like your organization's web page or follow your organization's color scheme. So this is an example that I've taken from Exchange AI. They have a bunch of templates. Many of them are free, some of them are paid, and feel free to have a look at them. I will mention whenever I'm using a template that you can totally go and download from your website as well. So what this template does is it plays with the CSS styling a little, and you get a very cool color sense of the tabs on top, which is not something we do out of the box in Spotfire, but is totally doable with a slight tweak in the CSS. So for the script, these are the changes that we have made, and the simplest way to do that is to go to edit HTML and make changes in the child nodes right here as seen in this page. So I've put in my colors here, and that's the simplest way to do this. The other thing that is very popular these days, or maybe with the customers that I've been dealing with, many times they want to have a very a hyperlink or something that explains the title or explains the visualization through a video or an audio, not necessarily through text. So a simple JavaScript tweak would allow you to see your video in the text area, and it would play just like it would on YouTube, thanks to our Chromium browser inbuilt. And it's a nice tweak to have, especially if you want audio or video to be present in your DXP. And the simplest way to do this, and I will review this, it was an internal project, so I can share this. If I go to edit HTML, we have a JavaScript. Let's go here, video content, edit. Right. So we have a very simple script, and you can take from this, augment this, and make it your own. It's very simple to show a video in the text area with this. All right. So going with this, Stu showed you a bunch of things that you could do with themes, colors, fonts to make it look more modern, more stylized. We also did a session earlier in the TIBCO Analytics meetup that did cover basics of how we could, make dashboards beautiful, and then through the 101 stuff about themes, about how Spotfire treats themes internally, how do you import and export themes. So if that is something that interests you, definitely go through it. All right. Now let's get back to our questions and see something that we were looking at here. All right. We also have sometimes customers have questions about customizations on a web browser. And the Spotfire JavaScript API really brings a lot of options to the table when we're talking about this. And many of you would be familiar with this because it's often a requirement to have dashboards on your web browser. So the cool thing about the Mashup API that basically uses the JavaScript API is that you can have your individual visualizations, for example, in this case, a bar chart and a scatter plot, talk with another visualization. In this case, this is just a big map. And marking and filtering, if you've set it up that way, would respond to marking and filtering on this map chart. And oftentimes, customers put in a text area here, which would just be an HTML text area, and they would explain stuff on their web page and go with the normal flow of things, and would say that this map is interactive and it will display all of your content, display all of your selections further along as you move along the page. So I think that adds a very good level of interactivity. We also work with a few examples for themes. This is done for a customer who wants to know what kind of themes could be done. So these are Spotfire dashboards that are popular with, say, the Economist theme or the 538 theme or the Dark Solarized theme. Again, just taking a sample dashboard and changing the color, look, and feel, much like the way Stu showed with the color picker that can identify hex codes and, putting it into individual bar charts or scatter plots to make it look more like the Economist or the 538 scheme of things. There are a few other things that you can do to make your DXP look a little more better, or to make it do something that it doesn't usually do just as is, if you were following the method of clicking individual buttons. But before I go there, I wanted to show, many times I'm asked about accordions and drop-down menus, and this is a paid template on Exchange. So I'll not be able to show the source code, but it's a really good example of how the text data was stylized using JavaScript to make something like a pop-up drop-down menu or a collapsible side menu. So coming back to a few more interactive things that you could do. Again, in order to see this template, which has been taken from the exchange, you could just Google the exact title here. And the reason why I wanted to use this was because it's publicly available. So here, this is a simple example of using one of these IronPython scripts taken from popular communities that discuss IronPython scripts in Spotfire, and to put it in a map chart, to put it in a line chart and show how you could press a button and enable show hide lines. Now, this is not a big deal. You could do this through other means and not necessarily through a script. But I like to think of IronPython as the enabler, which would allow me to do multiple clicks or multiple things that I would possibly go to a menu and then enable with one click. And that often that could add value to your organization if you wanted it to work that way. So we have a bunch of line charts just doing a show hide option, extrapolating this idea if you wanted, say, your DXP to show visualization based on a series of filters, such that if you so imagine you clicking one filter at a time, you could animate this in Spotfire and make your DXP look like a live video of sorts, if that's a use case that you are considering. So that was one option that you could make use of using IronPython scripts. The other option, which is very easy and very simple, is sometimes users want to know, okay, can I have a search bar and can I search over a DXP and search for a particular word or particular sentence? And this could be used with this could be done using custom expressions, utilizing regular expressions or regex expressions. And I know Spotfire these days, especially the desktop client, has a way of searching for a keyword. Then you do Control F. So if I do Control F and I say, okay, balance, everything in the DXP that has balance will pop up, right? But another way to do it through regular expressions to a much more confined area would be, say, looking for balance here. And it will only show me results that have the word balance in some form or the other, and balance and standing in some form or the other. So that's another cool addition that people find useful if they're trying to make the XPs look and feel a little different than how they do out of the box. Right. And let's get back to the question set and see if I'm missing something. There are a few things that I wanted to cover, which we might not be able to do in this session, but I'll definitely either send out the links or a video or to another follow-up session to show them further along in another Dr. Spotfire event. Right. Yeah, I think that's it. I wanted to show an elaborate file about data table to property name and manipulating text, which we can do in another session, but that's all from my side, Daisy.
Okay, Minerva, we still have about 10 minutes. So let's go through the themes page. If you could just bring that up, because that's really nice, and just walk through the elements of that.
Sure, I could. Let me just bring that up. Right, so for this, what I necessarily did was I used the Spotfire JavaScript API, and I wanted to show that Spotfire could look like anything that you wanted to make it look like. And if that was in the purview of, say, a color or just basic stylistic elements, right? So if you go to, I'm sorry, whenever my default is the Chrome browser. So if I go to the Spotfire JavaScript API, there are many articles that showcase how you could embed a dashboard, and the best one that I like is the one on the wiki that shows the one that shows on the wiki how you can use JavaScript API and how you can just embed your dashboard. It's a two-step process, right? So the ideal way to do this would be to create a dashboard and put it in the library such that you have a public link for it, and then interface it, and then simply put it in your HTML. This might look a little complex, but it is not if you follow it step by step. You are configuring your DXP to come from your public server, and you're putting an analysis path right there, and that's about it. It's optional to configure these variables. You can leave them as default. As you know, we have 3 or 4 DXPs right here, so you could have 3 or 4 blocks with these this setup, and that's it. And you have your DXPs in your web page, looking the way they do. And of course, setting up the DXPs for a particular color scheme or a theme would involve going to maybe the color picker and selecting this particular tone of yellow, going to the color picker and changing the text, going to the settings and changing the text, so on and so forth.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Minerva. If there are any further questions, we're happy to take them on chat. Make sure you pick up all the resources that are pasted on chat. And next week, we're going to be back with, next month, we're going to be back with our usual featured session and Q&A that we pick up from the community. So thank you so much for hanging out and looking at these amazing presentations, and I'll see you next month.